In this video, we are going to be remaking the song Like That by Future and Metro Boomin so accurately that not even Shazam could tell the difference between our remake and the original song. So, let's jump into it. Like That was produced by Metro Boomin himself, and for my Patreon supporters, the FLP and the stems are now available to you guys, link in the description. As you can see, we're in a different location today. We're in Byron Bay. Shout out to my grandma for owning this house, and shout out to my friend Alex for getting me this shirt for my birthday. So as you can see, I'm wearing it in the video, yeah. Since so many of you guys enjoyed the style, the format of the last video where I broke down Not Like Us, I'm going to be doing something similar today. So I've opened up the project all fresh once again. And first things first, I'm going to be dragging in the song Like That. So I have a reference for remaking this song, and let's find out the tempo. So I'm going to go up to this knob up here and go detect tempo. I like to do between 100 and 200 BPM because almost all modern hip hop songs are within that range. As you can see, this song is at 162 BPM. And so now the project is set to the tempo of this song. So let's jump into the intro. In researching this song, I found out that Metro Boomin sampled the song Everlasting Bass by Rodney O and Joe Cooley. And the first sample, this first chop here, the exact sample comes in at 2 minutes and 23 seconds into this song. So let's zoom over to this part here and have a listen. Half a second chop. So let's chop out this sample here. Let's go make unique, and let's bring that back to the intro. First things first, we need to bring down the pitch of this sample. So I'm going to go into the audio clip, bring the pitch down by 100 cents, which is 1 semitone. Perfect. Next up, I need to zoom in and get a better look at these waveforms. So I'm going to go to Options, General, Project, Time Base, and let's bring that up to 960. Now you can see we can zoom in much further. And the first thing you can notice is that the polarity is actually being reversed. So let's go back into the sample and let's go to reverse polarity. Very strange that they did this in this song. Doesn't really make much of a difference, but there you go. Then as you can see, the waveforms don't line up. It comes out of time. So I'm going to need to stretch the sample out. So let's turn on stretch mode and let's drag this sample. And now you can see it lines up perfectly. Much closer. And that's how the sample was modified without any effects. And I'm going to select it and go Control B to duplicate, B. And we're just going to be chopping it in the way that it was done in the original song. Next up, as you can hear, there were some effects added to the sample. So let's add these effects. I'm going to put this onto the mixer, onto Insert 1. Let's go to the mixer, go to Insert 1, and now we can add effects to this sample directly. First effect I'm going to add is a plugin called OTT, which is a free multi-band compressor. It's very useful for adding balance and clarity to your samples, but it's very aggressive. So let's bring down the depth to 25%. Next up, we need to add some distortion, so I'm going to go to Fruity Fast Distortion, and we're going to be bringing up the preamp to 100%, so increasing the signal before it actually becomes distorted. We're going to be bringing the threshold down to 20%, so it's a much lower threshold for the distortion to start acting on the sample. Bring down the mix to around 60%, so this is before, and this is after. Next up, we have a second sample from this sample. Sample from the sample comes in at 2 minutes and 56 seconds into the sample. Chopping this 8-bar loop out, and let's bring that back to the beginning. Once again, we're going to be stretching this sample out so that it's in time, and dropping this sample down by 1 semitone as well. Next up, we need to add a high-pass filter to this sample, so we're going to be putting it onto the mixer and adding parametric EQ2, so we can add a high-pass filter, removing the low end, and boosting the mid-range using a bell filter, or it's a peaking filter. It's actually really important that Metro Boomin added a high-pass filter to this sample, because since it came out in the 80s, it was recorded using analog gear. Whenever you sample an 80s hip-hop record, it's almost always a good idea to add a high-pass filter to remove the low-end rumble and noise that comes from the outdated recording equipment that they were using. Now, in the original song, that weird synth is playing here as well. And you can find this by stretching this out again, and it's right here, actually. where the synth plays on its own, and we're just chopping it out here. And so let's drag that back. Layering this second part of the sample makes the melody more cohesive. Next up, we have the drums. Starting off with the kick sample, we have, you guessed it, the rack kick. And this is the identical sample, but you have to pitch this sample down by 150 cents. See how it comes out of time with the waveforms? We bring this down by 1.5 semitones, or 150 cents. As you can see, it matches perfectly. Easy. Layering in the snare, which is a Metro Boomin snare. And one thing to note that's really important is that we still have these drums playing from the original sample, but we're beefing them up with these additional drums. And so it's imperative that this sample is playing exactly on time. So if they're not playing exactly together, it's not going to sound clean. And you might be wondering, what if Metro separated the stems using AI and there weren't the original drum samples playing? Well, there are parts in the song where the sample is playing without the drums and you can still hear these drum samples playing. That way we can confirm that Metro actually left the original drum samples from the sample and then layered in additional drum samples. Then for the hi-hat, we have the BWB hi-hat 1. And we need to bring down the length because the original hat has this reverbed tail at the end. We shorten this down, we get rid of the tail. Playing a relatively simple pattern with a couple of rolls. Next up, we have the 808 coming in. The exact sample, I believe, is the MB sub 2, and we're going to be turning on use loop points. And it doesn't play in the first 8 bars, it's sort of teasing you when it comes in. And we are adding no sidechain to this 808, but as you can see, it is identical if we compare the waveforms to the original song, which doesn't necessarily prove that it was the exact 808 that was used, but it looks really damn close. It's also a Metro Boomin sample, so my bet's on he used this exact sub. So that's it for the drums and bass. Drum and bass. Let's move on to the piano sample. We're going into Addictive Keys and using the Analog Velocity preset. This has a very distinct sound, a little bit of flanging going on, so it's quite easily recognizable. And that's going to sound like this. And that plays along like so. As you can hear, this preset has a bit of a tail end, so I'm actually going to export this into the playlist. Let's go render and replace, converting this from MIDI into audio. And so this way it will cut out immediately because it's not telling the instrument how to act, it's just an audio clip. Then, believe it or not, we have some pizzicato strings coming in, so plucked strings from double basses and cellos. And you can confirm this by going later on in the song when there are less instruments playing and you can hear it more easily. And so to recreate this, I'm using Session Strings Pro 2 within Kontakt, and we're using double basses and cellos. The violas and violins aren't active because they're out of the note range, so without any effects. Then we're also layering in SRX Orchestra, the stage pizzicato preset. Then I added both of those to the mixer, and we're going to be adding some RC20 retro color, of course, for some added distortion, some movement, and cutting out the low end. And so layering those in, which is a really nice way of emphasizing that ascending melody that we're playing with the 808 and with the sample. Then we have a preset that was incredibly difficult for me to locate. This preset single-handedly pushed this video back for months because I wasn't able to locate it for such a long time. Now, I didn't want to admit this, but I spent 67 hours on this project because it was so difficult for me to locate this preset. The preset we're using today comes from SRX Orchestra. It is the trumpets preset, which originally is going to sound like this. We're bringing up the level, turning off the MFX chorus and reverb, going to edit, and we're going to go to the TVF, which is, I guess, tone filter envelope. And so these are the 4 brass sounds that are playing in this preset. We have this one. But the key here is number 4, because that has that high end that we're looking for. That was a very specific sound that I was searching for, but we need a short decay. So we're going to bring down L3 to 0 and L2 to around 18. You can hear that high end cuts out pretty quickly, which is necessary for this remake. Then we're adding that preset to the mixer, and we're going to be panning it to the right, adding some RC20 for some distortion and reverb, then some fruity chorus using the light HF preset. Finally, boosting up the high shelf using FL Studio's native equalizer. Compared to the original, as I was editing this video, I realized that there was one more song that I forgot to mention that's in this remake, and it comes from a song called Easy Does It by Eazy-E.
He was once a thug. He was once a thug.
All right, this is the final result. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this remake and you want to see more in this style, go check out our last remake of Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. And we have more remakes from these diss tracks inbound. So make sure you subscribe with bell notifications so you don't miss when those videos come out. See you next time.